Hello and welcome to the No Cricket Podcast. I'm Anurag.
And this is Saurabh.
We're commentators at CrickBuzz.
So we watch a lot of cricket.
And that means when everyone's asleep at 3 a.m.,
We're watching cricket.
when it's a Friday evening and you're at the bar,
We're watching cricket.
and when you're stuck in rush hour traffic on Monday morning.
We're watching cricket again.
So naturally, we have a lot of interesting conversations about cricket.
So we thought, why not record them in front of a camera and put them into the wide vast ocean that is the internet.
And that's exactly what we've done.
This is the No Cricket Podcast where we share our 2 cents about the game that we love so much.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the No Cricket Podcast. Pretty exciting time in world cricket. We've just had a very exciting and very intriguing World Test Championship final. And we've got an India-England 5 Test series to look ahead to. Let's start off with that World Test Championship. South Africa winning. Saurabh, what did you make of that?
Oh yeah, Anurag, it was a really fascinating game of cricket. And firstly, congratulations to South Africa. They thoroughly
Absolutely.
deserve to win that. And as a neutral fan, it just feels good to see a new name on the trophy. And especially South Africa, because of how many heartbreaks they've had and just the history that they've had, it just feels good for Markram, Temba Bavuma, Kagiso Rabada, and the rest to finally lift some silverware. About the final, I just felt that it was kind of oddly shaped in the calendar because it just precedes the English summer and it comes right off T20 season with the IPL and stuff. So I'm not necessarily sure how fit or how ready the players were, considering most of these guys were also playing in the IPL. But nevertheless, a really fun game of Test cricket, and congratulations to South Africa. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, you're right. It was at an odd time, wasn't it? Especially for South Africa and Australia, both from the Southern Hemisphere. They don't really play Test cricket at this time of the year. And I think the last time South Africa played was sometime at the end of February, and something similar for Australia as well. So they had a long layoff between their last test and this World Test Championship final, especially for the players who don't play all formats, especially for the players who weren't part of the IPL. And I think we touched upon this in a previous episode as well, where we talked about South Africa, how South Africa's squad had a lot of players who played a lot of county cricket. And I think here's where that sort of helped South Africa again. Just that little added knowledge of the conditions, that just a little bit more experience. I think that went a long way in helping them. What are your thoughts about that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Surely the county cricket advantage for guys like David Bedingham really came to the front out there. But I also feel that South Africa are one of those funny teams in which they have a lot of players who are playing all formats for them. So a lot of these guys were actively part of the IPL and they're match fit, they're match ready. And although somebody like Ryle Rickleton or Tristan Stubbs, they might not have necessarily got a lot of runs under their belt in this final, but you just felt that they were ready for 5 days of grueling cricket. And it was evident in the way they were fielding. Like South Africa's fielding was top notch in this final. And overall, I think they just got the better of the conditions. They were fortunate to win a toss. Again, that's something that Temba Bavuma has really got right since he took over captaincy. I don't think he's ever
Flawless record.
lost.
Flawless record, isn't it? He hasn't lost a test match. Captain in 10 games, I think won 9 and drew 1 game. So he's yet to lose a test match. How amazing is that?
Absolutely, and plaudits to his captaincy. I think he's a wonderful leader of men, and I don't think he loses a lot of tosses as well. That surely got to do something with luck, but he got the rub of the green in this final as well, choosing to bowl first on an overcast day. And I really felt that South Africa would have just missed a trick maybe when they surrendered like a 70-run lead in the first innings. I really felt, oh my God, this is all over again. This is like 1992, 99, the T20 World Cup final. It's all over again for South Africa. But credit to them, they found a way to stick around and really get the best out of all their players. Credit to Aiden Markram, he would have been in tremendous pressure heading into that second innings after scoring a duck. But the way he kind of revived himself, it just speaks volumes of his character as well. And just to remind you, Aiden Markram is the guy under whom South Africa won their last major ICC tournament, which was the Under 19 World Cup, of course, in 2014.
Yeah, a couple of really interesting points to touch upon there. Let's start with Bavuma and his captaincy. I like that you mentioned that. I think that's something that really stood out in this game. When Bavuma was first appointed as the captain of the South African team, I'll be honest, I wasn't really sure if he was the right man for the job, but I think he's more than proved to everybody that he definitely is. What really stood out to me was his calmness under pressure, like you mentioned. There were various points in the test match where South Africa were under tremendous pressure, and obviously they've got this tag of being chokers, which they've hopefully shed off now. But South Africa did not crumble under that pressure. I think a lot of credit should go to Bavuma for that. He was calm, and you could sense that this team sort of respects him, and this team has sort of bought into his vision of remaining calm under pressure and taking the situation as it comes and not really thinking too far ahead. And that showed again, like you said, it in Aiden Markram's innings as well. If you look at when he came in to bat in the second innings, they were like you said 70 odd runs behind. He was walking in on a pair, and I think there were three stages of that Aiden Markram innings that really stood out to me. The first was, again, he was under tremendous pressure walking in. Obviously, Australia's new ball attack is fearsome. So the first of the three stages was how they were positive with the bat in the second innings, right? They copped a lot of criticism for how they batted in the first innings, which is very slow and quite negative, to be perfectly honest. But when they came out in the second innings, the openers and Markram in particular sort of set the tone. They didn't get bogged down. They kept the scoreboard ticking. And the second stage was him just sort of being that accumulator, giving South Africa's innings that substance, stitching that massive partnership with Bavuma and not giving Australia way in at all. They just kept Australia out, pretty much batted them out of the game. And then right towards the end, when there were two quick wickets, that of Bavuma's and Stubbs, you could sense that there were a bit of nerves going around again, right? When Bedingham came in, he didn't look like he was very fluent. He sort of got stuck at the crease. And that's when this third stage of the innings that again stood out to me was how he rotated the strike brilliantly. He played the situation to perfection, kept the strike ticking over, and in the end, for Australia, it was a death by 1,000 cuts. There was nothing they could do about it.
Oh yeah, 100% agree. And I think, as I said, it speaks volumes of Aiden Markram's character. Talent-wise, technique-wise, we all knew that he had it in him to like really be amongst the best and score runs in all kinds of tricky conditions. And now finally, he's actually got an innings under his belt as well, which like makes him a world beater. And again, like you said, it was just tremendous amounts of composure throughout that innings. I don't think there was even a half chance that he gave away. And to do that against the likes of Cummins, Stark, and Hazlewood, on when there were phases of play where batting was a bit tricky, just speaks volumes about how well Aiden Markram really played that final. The other thing about Temba Bavuma was that lofted cover drive that he hit off, I think, Pat Cummins very early on in his innings. That really set a marker. And there are some captains who like to like be very loud in the way they lead and be very energetic in the field. There are others who just work in silence. I think Temba Bavuma comes into that second category where he will lead by example, and he is quite a force to be reckoned with in this team. But it's not showy. It's not showboaty. It's just I'm here to do my job, and I'm here to motivate the 10 other guys to do their job as well, so that we can finally win some silverware.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, of all the divisions to exist in South Africa, you feel like this team is very united and works very well as a unit. And that again, I think the leader of that team deserves a lot of credit for that. You can just feel it, that right, that they're happy for each other's success. They're celebrating as a team. They're coming together really nicely, even on the field. You don't win trophies like these. You don't win world titles like these if you're not a united team working as a collective unit.
Oh, 100%. And I think if you just look at this South Africa's journey to this World Test Championship final, there have been many bits and pieces players who came along, won them a test match, just contributed in the crucial innings. Like if I can think back, the way Stubbs played in West Indies, the way Bedingham stepped up against Sri Lanka, the way Bavuma himself played against Sri Lanka, the way Senuran Muthuswamy and Keshav Maharaj performed when they came over to Bangladesh. Bangladesh is not an easy place to go and win a test series. So it's just they've stepped up. Even the team that they sent out to New Zealand, they got some stars out of it because that's where Dane Patterson and David Bedingham really got a chance to shine and really prove themselves. And that held them in good stead heading forward. So I think it was just a very collective effort. The other thing is, I remember something that Aiden Markram spoke about in the presentation, which was when Bavuma went down with a bit of a hamstring issue. He was the one who motivated Temba to be like, hey, stay on. Even if you don't score any runs, just your presence in the middle is going to be enough for us to like get more confidence. So again, like you said, really happy for each other's success, and they just dealt a blow to the Aussies, who were definitely favorites heading into this final.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'd completely forgotten about that hamstring issue as well. To play through that kind of pain, to play in that situation again, it shows immense character, and I think Temba Bavuma and the rest of the South African team absolutely deserve this win. Another key character that I'd like to talk about is Kagiso Rabada. I was just hearing another podcast, a Sky Sports podcast, and Dinesh Karthik mentioned that it was a very close call between the player of the match between Aiden Markram and Kagiso Rabada. Well, Markram got the player of the match for his 136, but let's not forget Rabada picked up 9 wickets and he really set the innings up. He set the win up for South Africa. Otherwise, they probably wouldn't have had a chance if Rabada hadn't bowled like he did. 5 wickets in the first innings, I think, and 4 in the second. Those second innings wickets were particularly crucial.
100%. And I think that's a mark of a true champion bowler, that when the lights are brightest, can you shine? Can you step up? And that's what Jasprit Bumrah maybe did for India in the T20 final. And that's what Pat Cummins has done for Australia in the ODI final. So, like, I think it's about time that we put Kagiso Rabada in the same category of bowler, because he's silently been an immense performer for South Africa. It's just a lot of his performances kind of go under the radar when compared to the likes of, say, a Bumrah, Cummins, or a Stark, because he's not as glamorous, or he's just a workhorse like fast bowler. So, and we also need to remember the state of mind Kagiso Rabada would have been in coming into this final with all the off-field issues that he had. And he had a horrid time in the IPL as well, where like he was getting whacked around for fun. So just to like put all of that aside and just turn up for that big final, set the ball rolling, honestly, because I remember in the first innings, Rabada started off with 3 maidens in his first 4 overs, if I'm not wrong. So really put that pressure on Australia. And you know how Usman Khwaja and Manas Labuschagne are as batters. If they get enough time in the middle, if they've got their eye in and they're feeling good about themselves, they can really make you hurt. And that's what Khwaja did to England last time in the Ashes. So getting rid of someone like a Khwaja and a Labuschagne early, although Jansen did get the wicket of Labuschagne, just the relentless pressure that Rabada applied with the new ball was critical. And I think that's a major contributing factor for South Africa's win.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, there's two sides to the story. Obviously, South Africa performed really well. They won. What went wrong for Australia? Right at the top of the order, do you think this Manas Labuschagne experiment is going to last? They've had three different people partnering Usman Khawaja in less than 12 months, right? And there are question marks around Khawaja himself. So heading into the future, heading into a big Ashes series, Australia potentially looking at two completely new openers.
The irony is that Australia are more keen to shuffle the other opener and not their 38-year-old opening batsman. So it's been kind of funny to see Manas open the batting. Obviously, it was done to maybe accommodate Cam Green and have him as a bowler as well. Although I don't think he bowled, right?
Yeah, I
So
think Cam Green, it was said that he wouldn't bowl in this game, and I think that's partly the reason both Green and Webster played, but that's another debate we'll get to. But yeah, in the meantime, again, I think there've been reports coming in from the Australian camp that they probably won't be persisting with Panis, which is strange because he's just been given one game. And if you look at the ones before him as well, right? McSweeney got just 3 games, Constas 2 games, and there was Travis Head filling in during the Sri Lanka series, and they said that that was a condition-specific selection as well. So effectively, not just 3. So that makes it 4 openers who partnered Kawaja. And it just gives off the feeling that Australia aren't quite the settled unit that they've been for such a long time.
Oh, absolutely, Anurag. And I think if you just scratch the surface, a little bit of troubled times really test what a team and what their structure is made up of. And Australia might have a really, really fragile underbelly. So, and I genuinely think this is a problem in the country. They are not producing good openers. There's nobody in the county circuit that averages more than 35. Nathan McSweeney made it into the team with a first class average of 30. Constas came in just because he could whack the ball and just to like create some panic in the Indian dressing room. So that's an area of concern for Australia, and I don't think it's very wise to be sending your best batters to be opening the batting. Your best batters need to be at 3 and 4. So this idea of making Smith open the batting in the past, now Labuschagne opening the batting, I just feel it's a little misguided. And tactically, I'm sure Australia will also think back and feel like they got a few things wrong. If they could have done a few things differently, but I'm not so sure it's fully panic stations because they have been a very dominant side in Test cricket, and most of the score, although it is an aging core, they're good for at least one more Test cycle, don't you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, like you said, their bowling is still looking pretty much sorted. They've got three of probably the best fast bowlers going around, with Nathan Lyon, who's also one of the most experienced and one of the best spinners going around. So concerns around the bowling, not so much at the moment. But like you said, they are aging. They're all mid-30s now, some of them late 30s. So that's another problem coming down the road. But I think they'll cross that bridge when they get to it. For now, the most pressing concerns are obviously the batting. Like you said, the best batters should bat 3 and 4. Whether Manas is one of their best batters, we're not so sure. But the man, the reason he moved up to open the batting was to make room for Cam Green. And Cam Green did not do well in this game. He got 4 very streaky runs in the first innings. I think it was off the pad, was given runs, and a big duck in the second. So in my book, that goes down as a bad because those weren't really proper runs. So pretty big failure for Cam Green. And if Cam Green isn't bowling, what does he really bring to the team? I mean, there's no question that he's an extraordinary batter, but Cam Green at number 3, I'm not so sure. What are your thoughts?
Well, I 100% agree on that. And I think Australia have invested a lot of time and effort into a player like Cam Green. He doesn't come around very often that you have a 6'5" bowler who bowls genuine solid medium pace, can swing the ball around, is a great fielder at gully as well, and can also really pull his weight as a batter. So there's a lot of potential out there, but I think now he's been in world cricket for 4 or 5 years. It's about time that we see performance to back that potential. And I think it was a mistake to get somebody like him at number 3, especially considering he's coming after a massive layoff. He's not had a lot of cricket under his belt, forget a lot of red ball cricket. And to just throw him at the deep end when Rabada and Janssen are at the peak of their powers with the new ball, maybe wasn't the best idea. That's not the subtle reintegration that Cam Green would have hoped for, and it did not. It backfired for Australia. So maybe there's a position for him in the middle order, but they've got to work out their batting lineup a little better. They have time now in the West Indies to sort that out, maybe. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see how Australia prepare their batting units. Like you said, the bowling's fine. That's not going to need any tweaking. What are your thoughts on Hazlewood over Scott Boland, though?
Well, I think it's a horses for courses kind of approach, right? Obviously, Scott Boland is a world class bowler. He's done really well. But I think Hazelwood still edges him out. just based on experience and quality. You always know what you're going to get with Hazlewood. You know that you're going to get a bowler who's going to hit that shot of a good length day in, day out. If you ask him to bowl for all 5 days, he's going to be bowling just there. So I think they looked at that wicket and sort of said that, hey, we're going to get a little bit of assistance. I think we want someone like Hazlewood to, give them that control. Obviously, I think Boland would probably be a slightly more attacking option, but I think they felt that they had and they had bowlers that could take 20 wickets with the quality of Cummins, Hazlewood, and Stark. I think they are your first choice.
True, true. I think it's going to be an interesting transition to see how Australia move forward. But speaking of transition, we are now set for a test series between two teams that are very
It's a big
much
one.
in transition, which is India and England. India with a
Yep.
new captain, of course. So, what are your thoughts on the Indian team and the new Indian captain and how that this series is lining up?
Yeah, very, very interesting times, isn't it? A lot of eyeballs will be on this Indian team. No Rohit Sharma, no Virat Kohli. Of course, that still remains the headline. I think even as we approach the first test, and obviously a lot of anticipation, a lot of expectations on Shubman Gill. He's got a lot to prove, not just as a leader but also as a batter. His performances in Sena countries, his poor average has been talked about enough. I think if he wants to, he'll want to set off on the right foot in this series. He'll want to get runs and big runs in in the first test, and so that he doesn't put too much pressure on himself. Again, Headingley, I think pretty decent place to bat on, and from everything we've seen and heard, it's been a pretty dry summer in England. So the pitches are going to be dry as well. We saw in that one game that England played against Zimbabwe.
So I have a really unpopular opinion out here. I think a lot has been said about Shubman Gill's average away from home, but this England team and these English conditions are maybe the best suited and the best time for India and Shubman Gill as captain to be auditioning because you can expect flat decks with whatever the baseball revolution that England is seeing. This is how the last two English summers have been. Runs have been an offer. The first day of an Ashes Test was hit for a boundary by Zach Crawley. So I think, and if you think of flat track bullies, sorry to use that word, but if you think of batters who are well equipped to be playing on flat decks, Shubman Gill's right up there. And his record at Ahmedabad, for instance, is exemplary. And I think these English conditions might be really well suited for him. And it's a great opportunity for him to go out there, make some runs, and really silence his doubters. And I think the way the Indian team has also been structured with somebody like Karun Nair or Sai Sudarshan being given a nod, it's the right time to test these guys out, and it's the right conditions as well for these guys to come in. It's also great that they will be up against an inexperienced English bowling attack for the first test. It's an inexperienced batting lineup versus an inexperienced bowling lineup. It's gonna be fun to see who comes out on top. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely spot on. When you thought about tours to England in the past, it's always been known as this place that swings a lot, seems a lot, very difficult to bat on. But like you correctly mentioned, in the past few years, especially since Basball, I think that hasn't quite always been the case. There have been a lot of flat decks. England like pitches where they can score. They've got a lot of free stroke players. So they're not going to be rolling out, green tops where their own batters are going to struggle, right? So, and it also isn't like 5 or 6 years ago where you're facing Stuart Broad and Jimmy Anderson. It's again, like you correctly mentioned, a very inexperienced bowling attack. If you look through England's ranks, the only genuine swing bowler is probably Chris Wokes. Sam Cook to an extent, but again, he's still very raw. We don't even know if he's going to be playing that first game. So the rest of England's bowlers, if you look at Gus Atkinson, Josh Tongue, they aren't really swing bowlers. They're more seam bowlers, right? And again, on flat track, on what we expect will be flat tracks, the Indian batters should cash in.
Absolutely. And I think this whole idea of what England are trying to develop, where they are looking for express pace with their fast bowlers. They are looking at bowlers who can go to Perth and terrorize the Aussie batters. It might not necessarily be the best ploy against India in 2025 because the Indian batters are more than well equipped to handle raw pace. Things that have been troubling for Indian batters maybe has been movement and playing good quality spin. As ironic as it may sound, raw pace has never been a real concern for India, and that was evident with how the Indians performed at Perth, which is known to be one of the fastest decks around. So I think just the idea of what Brendan McCullum is trying to do might kind of go against him, and it'll really favor India in this Test series.
Absolutely, I absolutely agree with that. So what do you make of India's bowling lineup? You reckon they've got bowlers that can take 20 wickets?
Again, it's a very interesting thought because where if the decks are a bit flat, you can't ask for a better bowler than Jasprit Bumrah. Jasprit Bumrah is the best bowler in all conditions, but all the more when it's a lifeless pitch and you would want something out of it. He did that in like Ranchi and Ahmedabad, for example, against England, where like he got a Yorker out of nowhere to dismiss Ollie Pope. So India have like a real chink up their armor with somebody like Bumrah. I also think Siraj, I think this is the second time he'll be going to England. So he's fairly experienced. He knows what to expect. And he's been a pretty good test bowler in all fairness. And somebody like Prasidh Krishna maybe coming in as the third seamer might be a good idea because he hits the deck well. And like again, that's what you need on a slightly flat wicket. Somebody who can really hit the deck hard and pound you out. That's how Cam Green got a lot of wickets in the Lord's Test match in the last Ashes. So a similar strategy, maybe what Ishant Sharma did in 2014, where he bounced out the English players. That could be very interesting to kind of
Famous
replicate
seven
with.
wicket haul.
Oh yeah, the 7 wicket haul. But yeah, something of that sort maybe is something India could replicate with Prasidh Krishna. With the spin department, I also feel Jadeja is just offers you great utility as a three-dimensional player. And if not Jadeja, I'll be very intrigued to look at somebody like Kuldeep Yadav. The main reason being, again, if the decks are not offering, it's gotta seem like middle overs ODI cricket. That's what Test cricket in England looks like nowadays. And who's your most effective middle overs ODI bowler? It's Kuldeep Yadav. So he might have like a real role to play in this Test series. And a lot of these English players, except the experienced one like Joe Root or Stokes, might not necessarily have played a lot of quality wrist spin. So Kuldeep really has a chance to be an X factor out here and just get wickets and like make things happen basically during a dull session.
Absolutely. Again, I'm glad you brought the spinners up because from what little cricket we saw in that 4-day test between England and Zimbabwe at Nottingham, again, the track was very dry. And from everything that we've seen and heard, it's going to be that way for the rest of the summer as well. Um, I think the spinners are really going to come into play, especially on days 4 and 5. Even in that game, you saw Shoaib Bashir coming into his own. He was extracting quite a bit of turn and bounce. So this might not be an angle that a lot of people have thought about, but it's consider this a hot take. But I think the spinners are going to do unexpectedly well in this series, and they're going to have a big role to play. And I do hope Kuldeep Yadav gets a couple of games, especially like you said on decks that are probably more batting friendly. He could definitely come into play, and if he gets a bit of purchase, then again he's a lethal weapon, right? Jadeja becomes extremely effective as well when he can extract some grip and turn. So again, I think India have an extremely potent bowling attack. Like you said, Bumrah the magician. You cannot not mention Bumrah, and the support cast seems good enough as well this time. Siraj again, lots of experience. Prasidh Krishna brings in a new dimension to this attack with his height and with his ability to sort of hit the deck, and he can also swing the ball. So that's the three seamers and spinner covered. The other big debate: what all rounder are you going for? Are you going for the batting all rounder in Nitish Reddy, or are you going to go for Shardul Thakur, the bowling all rounder?
My personal opinion would always be for continuity. The way Nitish Reddy has performed in Australia, it just makes no sense to suddenly drop him. I hope he's bowling ready because he didn't bowl a lot in the IPL. If he is ready to play as an all rounder, it's definitely Nitish Reddy for me. The other reason being, I also looked at how Shardul performed in the practice match, and he wasn't looking very lethal, to be honest. And with Shardul, it's just if he's able to swing the ball and just wobble it around, that's when he becomes kind of dangerous because otherwise he's just a dibbly dobbly 130s bowler that Joe Root can kind of ramp and reverse ramp for fun. So I would I would bat for Nitish Reddy coming in as that batting all rounder, and obviously Jadeja also is kind of shoe in for his spot. What about the batting? How would you look at that combination for India?
Yeah, that's the other big debate, isn't it? I think again the general consensus is that Shubman Gill will bat at four and KL Rahul will open the batting. So I think that's one question answered. The other questions, of course, are who's going to bat at three and who's going to potentially bat at five or six. I'd like to see Sai Sudarshan. I think he's got a brilliant technique, and I think he sort of fits very nicely into that number three role. Um, if it were up to me, I'd give him a long rope and tell him that hey, you're going to be playing all five games. Go out there, play with freedom, and see where it goes from there. And at number five, again, five or six, depending on where Rishabh Pant wants to play. He's played at five before, so maybe number six. I think Karan Nair has almost made it impossible to say no to him. It would he'd make the selectors look very silly if they didn't pick him. Right? Again, got another double hundred in that practice game. So yeah, it would look very silly if they did not pick Karun Nair. I wouldn't want him at three. I think he'd do better slightly lower down the order at five or six. So Karun Nair would be my pick. And obviously, as backup, you've got Dhruv Jurel, who's also been performing really well. But I would start with Sai Sudarshan and Karun Nair. What about you?
100%. Those were going to be my picks as well. I think Sai Sudarshan, although he got a lot of runs in the IPL and he was scoring quickly and stuff, the thing that impressed me the most was his technique. He plays pure cricketing shots, he plays textbook shots, and he looks elegant while batting. So this exact technique can be replicated in red ball cricket, and I don't see any reason for him to not be successful. So Sai Sudarshan at three is kind of a lock-in. It's not very different to the role he's been playing for his franchise team, and necessarily even for India, where he's played at like India A level and stuff. Karun Nair at five over Iswaran, maybe purely because of just you in this slightly young team, especially that young batting unit. It makes sense to have a more experienced guy, a guy who's actually played for India in the past and knows what pressure at that elite level really looks like. So, and again, it's the performances as well. Iswaran has done a great job in the domestic circuit. He got runs in the practice game as well, but I still feel that maybe he's got to wait his turn a little bit longer. It's a little unfair on him, maybe, but it's just that this is Karun Nair's chance at cricket giving him one more opportunity. So
Yeah,
I really
absolutely.
hope that he can make the most. The other thing is that when the ball is slightly old, when it's beyond say 50 overs or so, that's the best time to be scoring runs in England. So that's the time you'd ideally want a Rishabh Pant and a Karun Nair to be batting out there. So when you have someone with a more aggressive mindset, which Karun Nair is, if you compare him to Iswaran, then it allows India to score more freely and really cash in those 50 to say 80 over benchmark where batting gets a lot slightly easier.
Yeah, absolutely. So if we can quickly run through an 11, Jaiswal, Rahul to open, Sai Sudarshan at 3, Shubman Gill at 4, Rishabh Pant at 5, Karun Nair at 6, maybe they could be swapped around, Jadeja at 7, Nitish Reddy at 8, then you've got three fast bowlers, Bumrah, Prasid, Siraj, and in whatever order. How does that sound?
Perfect. That's exactly what I was thinking about, and just a bit of horses for courses, just a bit of tweaking for conditions, but this primarily looks like the strongest India 11 that we can put out there. What about England?
Yeah.
How do you look at their chances in this series?
Yeah, again, interesting debate about England as well, right? There have been new reports coming in that they like, forget reports, it's come straight from Stokes' mouth that they really like that he really likes Jacob Bethel, and he said that he'd slot straight back into the 11. But I think that choice has been made a little bit more difficult with Ollie Pope getting runs in that Zimbabwe game. He got 170 odd in his only innings. So I wonder, it'll be really hard to go and say, to go and tell Ollie Pope that he's dropped after just making 170. So I don't know which way they'll go. I think that's the biggest debate with the England team at the moment. But otherwise, I expect them to line up as usual with Duckett and Crawley opening the batting. Um, I'd still go Pope again for his experience, for his performances. It'd be really harsh to drop him. So I've got Pope at number 3. Then Joe Root, then Harry Brook, Ben Stokes, Jamie Smith, Chris Wokes coming back in. I think he'll be a very he'll play a key part in this England team. They'll really like his experience and his ability to swing the ball and also give them that batting depth. I think Chris Wokes will be a very important player in this series. And then you've got Josh Tongue, Sam Cook, Shoaib Bashir, and again question marks over Gus Atkinson, who they'll desperately be hoping can regain fitness.
Yeah, that sounds about right. And I also feel it's kind of harsh to be telling your vice captain that, hey, you can't be playing because there's this
Yeah.
new young kid who's really exciting for the skipper. So I think Bethel, maybe he's also young. He'll have plenty of opportunities in the future. So I think, yeah, it's wise for England to start with somebody like Ollie Pope. It's also Ollie Pope's greatest strength is his ability to play an all-timer knock when the chips are down. Like he did that against India in Vizag, I believe, where England
Hyderabad.
won the first test. Hyderabad. And so it's just you really back such potential, like, and you really want these kind of talismanic figures in your team who can like really rescue you from hell or high water.
Absolutely. Well, very exciting series coming up. I think that's a good place to leave it. Um, there's no doubt we'll all be glued to our screens. We'll also be covering some of the games. So very exciting time ahead. Do share your thoughts with us. We'd love to hear what you think. Do you agree with the 11 that we've come up with? If not, do make sure you leave a comment below saying what changes you'd like, either to England side or India side. We're looking forward to hearing from you guys. Well, that's it from us this week. Do like, share, and subscribe to the channel. We'll be back with more content soon. Thank you.